While a rare sleep-in and breakfast had calmed Evony down, she still wasn't much impressed with the whole competition, even if the girl from Vernell had told her attackers she'd give and tell them anything they wanted if they left her alone, and been cut from the contest because of it. Knowing that still wasn't worth putting the rest of the girls through terror, especially since none of them would ever likely see battle. If it had been her and other Amazzi, she could have seen the merit, but not untrained girls. And having spent 2 meals with them, listening to their chatter and seeing some of their behavior, Evony knew that they were mostly girls. Only a few others looked to be of majority to her. Then again, Amazzi ways were not the ways of the mainland, so she supposed she should adjust her thinking. She was also glad that Admina had interests outside of clothing, hair, poetry, and dances, which was most of what she'd heard the others talking about. While she liked all of those things, except poetry, she preferred to talk about things more meaningful, was the best word she could think of. She wondered if it was because she was older than most of the others, Amazzi, or because of the competition, but none of the others seemed to have much interest in anything of substance. Sighing, Evony leaned back against the wall beside Admina's door as she waited for her friend to finish changing. She also made a mental note to either wake up earlier or go in the evening to the training fields for practice, though she supposed last night had to count for something. She glanced around, noting that several of the girls had formed groups, with only a few alone or in pairs. One group, headed up by the loud silver girl, Venita, she thought her name was, were whispering and looking at her. She ignored them. She'd overheard the comments at breakfast that they'd obviously intended her to hear, but if they thought saying she was mannish and violent was going to bother her, they clearly didn't know her or her people. She wasn't here to make friends or to fit in. She was here because her and her people's honor demanded it. Still, she smiled when Admina finally emerged in a fresh dress, having knocked her eggs into her lap when she'd heard what the other girls were saying. For all that she was quiet, hesitant, and a little fearful, her friend did have some fire to her. It made Evony like her all the more. The sound of marching feet drew Evony's attention towards the entrance to their hall. She glowered as she saw Harlequin coming in, followed by only 2 guards this time. She eyed the small wooden box he held for a moment, then pushed off from the wall. She nodded to Admina, who flinched a little but followed her to where the Emperor's aide was now stopping. It didn't take long for all the girls to assemble around him. 19 sets of eyes watched Harlequin's every move as he stepped forward.
"Congratulations on passing the 2nd test, while some of you,"
his gaze flicked to Evony for a brief second,
"have protested the methods. This test, while rough, was designed to see how you would each deal with personal danger. While rare, assassination attempts and attacks do happen. Being able to keep yourself from being killed or kidnapped prior to help arriving is imperative. I'm glad that so many of you passed, and you do have the Emperor's apologies for any fright it caused you."
Evony snorted quietly. If it was a sincere apology, the Emperor would be there, making the apology himself. She didn't think much of anyone who had his subordinate doing his dirty work for him.
"For our 3rd test, I require each of you to draw a slip of paper from this box. If you would come up one at a time."
Harlequin held the small box high enough, not even Evony, tallest among all the candidates, would have been able to see over the top of it. After some brief jostling, something like a line formed in front of Harlequin. Evony and Admina were near the back, mixed in with the others who didn't see a point in being first. Evony doubted they'd only have enough papers for part of the group, not that it would have bothered her if she were disqualified.